training, and preparing for the pandemic. As we were told repeatedly over the national and local news that this was coming, we started trying to prepare our folks for this. We stayed open until March the 17th, conducting business as usual. And then from March the 20th through April the 17th, the staff continued to work, but we closed the office and asked our customers to use the drive-through. That was a 4-week period of time. Then on April the 20th, as we started to have more and more cases in our county, we made a decision that for the next 3 weeks, we would allow most of our staff to work remotely while still carrying on business of the city as usual. On May the 11th, the staff returned to work. We kept the office closed for a week, used the drive-through, and then since May the 18th, we've been open to the public. During all this time, our staff worked very hard, both those here at the office and those on Andrus Drive and elsewhere, to continue to provide the needed services to the city. We made adjustments as needed. Now, during this time, of course, the hot topic was the COVID-19 pandemic. The first positive case in Callaway County was on March the 20th. We had 3 cases in March, and then we had 29 more cases in April, 14 more in May, and then 7 more in June. We've had a total of 53 cases. At this time, there are 53 positive cases that have been reported. 48 of those have recovered. Unfortunately, we did lose 1 citizen to this disease. But active cases right now are very few. But as you know, businesses were told to close, and we'll begin to have more testing, and pretty much everything shut down for a period of time, and things got pretty rough. People started getting laid off, and businesses closed, and unemployment. So, but as things started to slow down a little bit, particularly in our area, then we're slowly been opening back up. The past few weeks, however, the headline has shifted to marches, protests, rallies. In our own town last week, we had 5 events, 3 of which were orderly, 2 which could have caused concerns. But our Murray Police Department was present. They were in charge, and they kept everyone safe. The center of attention now appears to be the Confederate statue in the court square. We were brought into this discussion when a young man sent an open letter to me and you and several others, informing us that he expected us to do something about this statue. We issued a statement to inform the young man and the general public that this statue does not stand on city property, and we have no legal authority to tell the judge in the fiscal court what to do. However, our names appeared in media, television, and even the New York Times. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor up to discussion, since we've been brought into this issue, to discussion concerning the statute on the courthouse lawn. So if you've got a comment or an opinion or anything you'd like to say, the floor is open.
Mr. Mayor, could I go first?
Mr. Hudspeth.
All right, thank you. First, Mr. Mayor, I want to as well congratulate and commend the organizers and the individuals that have participated over the last 17 days in protest of police violence, racism, and injustice in our society, protesting and proclaiming that Black Lives Matter. I also like to praise and thank Chief Lyles and his department, like you have, for handling the protests and events in a most caring and professional way to keep the protests peaceful and as safe. Reach out to Mr. Gentry of the Race Patrol and Mr. Steger for the Sheriff's Department for giving him a helping hand. We have seen on video 3 recent deaths, 3 recent killings, 3 recent murders: George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. That has led a new awareness that racism still plagues our police communities, our cities, our communities, our states, our country, and this world in which we live. And these deaths have given rise to an overwhelming response led by young and old Americans of every race, creed, and color, as well as people all over the world, to demand that we must do better, and that time is of the essence. Martin Luther King, in one of his speeches, said this: "Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." This was said in the 60s, and here we are in 2020, some 60 years later, and these words still ring true. Now is the time. Now is the time we must remove the barriers that divide us. Now is the time to remove the things that offend. So after many letters, discussions, Facebook posts back and forth, after many days and weeks and months and years and decades of talking about and debating the issue of the Confederate statue on our court square, an object that divides and offends, at the end of this discussion, Mr. Mayor, I would like to be the one to make a motion that you form a committee and draw up a resolution to remove the statue from the court square, and that we would send that resolution to the fiscal court. The time is now to do the right things. The time is now. We start all of our meetings. We have a moment of silence. Most of the time, all the time, I pray during that moment of silence. That is followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today, that pledge, most importantly, the last 3 words should have a rejuvenated meaning to all of us. The time is now to not just say those last 3 words of our Pledge of Allegiance. The time is now to ensure that those last 3 words have true meaning for all of us. With that, I yield to someone else.
Thank you, Mr. Hudspeth. Anyone else have a comment? Ms. Cherry?
I just have an interesting comment, something that I found out regarding the removal of the statue. I found out that it is also, besides being registered with the historical monument thing that we see around town everywhere in larger cities, it's also registered with the Kentucky War Monument Commission. And if you will Google that, the Kentucky War Monument Commission, they say very clearly that it cannot be altered unless it's being repaired. It cannot be removed unless it's on loan for less than 1 year, and it must have the approval of this KWMC. So before we, I don't know, this just might just have a lot to do with what we are able to do, what the fiscal court, the magistrates, and the judge executive, what they are able to do. Has anybody looked at this? Has anybody heard of this?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
The Kentucky Military Heritage Commission is a 5-member board appointed by Kentucky's governor. 3 of the members are generals, and I believe the most recent chairman was appointed 3 months ago. The mayor indicated earlier that one of the reasons we're having this conversation now is from a letter sent by a man named Sherman Neal, who is a football coach at Murray State University. In addition to being a coach, Mr. Neal is also an attorney and a former Marine. And he's personally reached out to the commission, and I believe they've indicated that they take action following actions taken by local government. If you look at 2017, the city of Lexington relocated 2 of their Confederate statues. They were previously located in public areas, and they were moved to cemeteries as a result. And in the end, the commission did weigh in, and those statues are still relocated today. So I have not spoken to them personally. I do know members of our community already have reached out to the commission directly, and they've indicated that if the fiscal court is supportive, they will be supportive as well.
Is this the same thing that I was speaking of?
Yeah,
The
it's-
Kentucky War
It's
Monument?
called the Kentucky Military Heritage Commission, and it's part of the broader historical commission in Frankfurt.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Others?
Well, I'll make a brief statement just to go on the record.
Okay.
I realize there are some people who want the statue to remain. I've had a few contacts to that end, but many more in favor of removal. I would ask everyone to consider the message that it sends about our town to visitors and potential employers who visit here, and most especially a large number of Murray residents who experience sadness, discomfort, or anger when they see the statue. So I hope we can come together in a spirit of mutual respect and brotherhood to remove and relocate the Confederate statue.
Anyone else?
Yes, with that removal too, I think we should come up with something to put in its place. Something that would be of meaning to Murray and Callaway County. You know, we could have a contest to see who we would want to put there, or a noted Kentuckian. I don't know, I think we should find something that means something to this town to put something there. So that way, you know, whether it's Nathan B. Stubblefield, or whether it's Danny Hudspeth, or whoever it is, we find somebody that of you know, noted interest here in Murray and Callaway County to put into that spot. So that way when people do drive by, then they can say, well, this is what either this person or we put Dunker, or we put the 2 high school symbols out there, whatever, but we find something that we could put in its place instead. I know that's not going to be our responsibility, but I would hope that we could find to come to some amicable agreement as to what we could put in its place, so that way we could bring it a little more pride than what it is right now.
I agree with Jeremy, although that is not the point here, but I do agree with that. I do think we need to make a statement to all citizens of our county, which includes Murray, that it is a terrible, horrible part of our history. Even though it is a part of our history, it's a terrible, horrible part of our history. It's very shameful, and we shouldn't pay reverence to it, and I think that's the message that we need to send. But I do agree with you also.
Anyone else?
As the mayor knows, I came to the mayor some time back, him and Jim Osborne, and talked about the statue, thinking that it was my first term last year on this board, and I expressed my opinion that that statute really doesn't belong there. It should be moved. So I've had that position for several years, and I'm glad to see that this opportunity may come up before us right now. I think it needs to be fully explained to the citizens that, you know, we're not trying to change history. Anybody who is familiar with Kentucky and American history, as Wes Bolin is and his father, knows that the era after 1877, after Reconstruction was over, became known generally as the Jim Crow era. And that's when laws were passed all over America, but especially in the South, to disenfranchise African Americans. And so that statue went up in 1917 during the height of the Jim Crow era. And it represents Jim Crow era thinking. So it has to be thought about, has to be removed, and we can figure out at some point later where it should go, but it should be removed, at least in my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alice?
I agree with Danny. It's time to put the past behind us, move forward and unite together. So I want to second his motion. Let's get together and make a resolution.
Anyone else?
I think, that, Your Honor, if maybe just a show of hands here tonight, those on the council, that I'm curious to see if we're unanimous, if we could have a show of hands that think that it sometime that in the near future, is I guess is the way I would phrase it, the statute needs to go. And if you don't mind, I'd like to see how the council feels.
Oh, we can do that, or we can wait and vote on the motion. Well, you know, which will tell us the same, I guess. Yes, sir.
Well, I, like all of us, have grown tired of this issue. You know, it's been going on now my whole life. I've heard about all this our whole life. I think the whole world and the whole country, and we're all getting tired of this issue and would love some way to settle this issue and treat people more fairly. The police have played a big part in this. They've certainly been put between a rock and a hard place between enforcing the law, but there has been a lot of abuse by the police. I think that's what brought this to a head. You know, with two great-great-grandfathers that fought in the Civil War for the South and a heritage from Mississippi, you know, it runs deep, the Confederacy and the thinking. But to tell you the truth, most people down there have dealt with it better than even us, because we've always been caught in the middle. You know, that statue is honoring them. It doesn't have Robert E. Lee's name on it. It doesn't have anything on it celebrating the Confederacy. It's just the people that fought in that war. And I would personally hate to see it pulled down and broke into a million pieces. And I think that's what we're probably, I don't see any need of going forward and putting this off indefinitely and bringing things to perhaps a violent conclusion when Murray's been always good about thinking things out and getting an idea from lots of different places and being rational about a decision like this. I think both sides would be happy if we were moving in a direction. I don't think that the protesters want it down tomorrow, but they would, I think if they saw that we favored moving it to a spot, personally, I would like to see it moved out to the Confederate Cemetery, wherever that is. I've never been there, never even seen Nathan B. Stubfield's grave, but it sounds like a natural place for it. And I don't know why we can't get donations to move it out there and let it be where it should be. Or we even talked in the past of moving it out to our city cemetery out there, where there are statues out there that are as large as it is. So, you know, I think us rushing into a decision tonight, it is a divisive issue. Not everyone's cut and dried on this issue, and I think it would be wise to maybe hear what the fiscal court says, and rather than trying to guide them, listen to see what, they're the ones that's going to have to make the decision, not us.
Right.
So, you know, yes, I think everyone would like to see a rational conclusion to all this mess. But as far as getting a show of hands and getting people on paper about where they stand tonight without a whole lot of research on it, I think would be a little bit rash. I would like to talk to Sons of Confederate Veterans to see what they have in mind for it. You know, maybe they would love to move it out to that cemetery. And then I like the idea of putting someone up there that's a little bit more appropriate. But unless we get some giving from the protester side, the Black American side, and you know, everyone's going to have to give a little bit on this, you know. And,
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
You know, Dr. Young, with all due respect, I think we've had 100 years to study this issue. It was erected in 1917, and I know that I've spent years studying the statue specifically. I've seen the bill of sale where Robert E. Lee's name is mentioned on the $2,250 check that the J.N. Williams chapter of the UDC first wrote to the McNeil Marble Company. I've seen newspaper articles about the maintenance of that statue over 100 years. And the Sons of Confederate Veterans and many community members have had many opportunities over that century to weigh in on this statue. At some point, you're part of a historic moment that demands an answer. And though we are not members of the fiscal court and we will not be able to vote on this issue, we are citizens of Murray, Kentucky. And as Teddy Roosevelt said, we all have access to the bully pulpit that is our elected position. There are 12 of us, and we have 12 pulpits here to speak from. And tonight, I want to see a show of hands on who thinks this statue should be located. You're right that we don't need to rush to pick a specific location now. That can all be settled. But I think what's important is we make a commitment now that 100 years is enough. Like Dr. Streeter says, this isn't a revocation of our history. This is about placing our history in context. What you put at your heart, what you put at the center of your community is what you value. And right now, what we show to visitors and to members of our community who are people of color is that we value the legacy of the Confederacy. This statue is useless to me as a teacher of history, as an example for my students, because if you go to that statue, you're right, you don't see Lee's name. You don't see list of soldiers. You see nothing about the 200 Union men that fought from our community. A lot of what we know about this statue seems like hearsay. Why does it face the direction that it did? Is it Lee or is it not? Why did it take so long for it to build? All of that can be put in context. That's what history is. It's about historic placards that show why this was erected and what it meant. It's about telling the full history of the Civil War. And right now, it's a shrine. It's not a historic object. And in this week, we've seen the state of Mississippi consider changing their state flag to get rid of the Confederate battle flag. We've seen NASCAR, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Marines all ban the use of Confederate memorabilia. We've seen action taken in Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy, in Jacksonville, Florida, in New Orleans, in Mobile, in Nashville, and in Louisville. And at some point, I want Murray to be on the right side of that because we have an opportunity at this moment to be on the right side of history. And the other side has had their 100 years.
Thank you.
Here, well said.
Is there anyone else? Well, I'm just going to tell you the way my heart feels. I respect the rights of everyone. I try to understand folks. I try to understand those who are concerned about history. I try to understand those who are offended by the statue. But I'm very, very concerned about the safety of our community right now. I'm concerned. Just week before last week, we had 2 gatherings that could have caused injury or harm to people and property. And people at some of these rallies are armed. They're angry. They're worked up, and sometimes they don't use good judgment. And for us to put people in harm's way and put our business owners' property in harm's way concerns me. If you read the article in the paper yesterday or the day before about James Payne, James Payne is a former citizen of Murray, grew up here. He's a policeman in Fort Wayne. He was thrown in the middle of some of these protests, having things thrown at him. And his chief of police asked him if he could try to help settle this down. And, one of the reasons we had one of the protests is because we had a couple of real peaceful protests where people were showing their concern, their empathy, they're reaching out to people. We love you. We understand. But people from out of town start putting on Facebook that the people in Murray weren't taking this seriously. So they came in from out of town and they started stirring things up at this rally. And we ended up with someone pointing a gun. And we ended up with someone spraying pepper spray on our citizens and even our policemen. And James, when they asked James, how do you work so well with people, and what's your secret? James says, what he does is simple. I try to spread love. The way he said he learned it was done in Murray, Kentucky. That's what James said. And then he went on to say that he says, however, with all the love he's spreading in Fort Wayne, he says all the credit goes to his original home. I try to treat everybody up here like I was treated in Murray. The guys all laugh. They say, dude, you're always smiling. You're always happy. And I say, that's Murray. We're trying to do things the Murray way, the right way. And that's what I'm trying to encourage. I don't want our people put in harm's way. Someone said the other day, I understand I don't have a lot of feelings either way, but it's not worth somebody getting hurt or killed. It's not worth that. So that's my concern. I want our people to be safe. And I don't know if it's, even though we've had 5, I don't know that there's not going to be more the way things are going in our country. So everyone's had a chance to make their comments. Mr. Hudspeth, I'll entertain your motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that the mayor form a committee to draw up a resolution to remove the statue, the Confederate statue, from the court square. That resolution be ready for our agenda on the next meeting, and that we forward that resolution, if passed, to the fiscal court.
You've heard the motion,
Second.
and it has been seconded, that I will appoint a committee to work with our attorney to draw up a resolution requesting and send it to fiscal court, requesting from them, from the council, that they relocate the statue. As I understand it, that's the motion.
Yes, sir.
And a second. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor, will that resolution be in time for this next fiscal court meeting? It's coming up.
The resolution,
next week, I believe.
the resolution won't be, but it will be known that there is one coming. Because I had to wait till you voted to instruct me to have one drawn up. But I think they meet next Wednesday, and then we meet the following Thursday. So that's the motion. And the second. Anybody want to call for a question? Or say what you want to say? Question's been called for.
The only thing that I have to say on that, Mayor, and I'm going to vote for it, of course, because is when is this going to stop? When is it going to stop what these protesters are demanding?
Right.
I think that's one big question that people have a concern. Yeah, we'll, but I mean, is it going to continue on to where, okay, in any unfairness, we're gonna have these protesters coming in and we're gonna act afraid and scared and somebody's gonna be hurt. I mean, I think we're gonna have to really look and see where this is gonna come to a conclusion. If this is gonna come to a conclusion with this statue being moved.
Yes, sir.
May I respond?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Young, when are black men gonna stop being murdered for just being black? When is that gonna stop? This is a symptom of that. It shows who we are. You know, the last 3 words of our pledge, justice for all. When that happens, or when the majority of us feel like that's happening, is when some of this stuff will stop. We gotta stop being silent about all this stuff that hurts people and that's wrong. You gotta stand up and stand with these people who talk today that says this is wrong. That's the first step in it.
I mean, I don't think.
But you asked when it's gonna end?
But how is it gonna end?
How's it gonna end?
How's it gonna-
It's gotta end when we start doing better.
We,
Or
police.
Well,
we.
Can I comment as well? I don't see this as us being extorted to move this, okay? You know, if we don't move it, people aren't gonna be happy and they're gonna take it down or somebody's gonna get hurt. I don't see it as us being extorted to do that. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and we're showing it's a small step to show our black community, our people of color, who we have all kinds of inequities in healthcare still, in the legal system, my goodness, in education. This is one small step. This is not going to be, okay, we're going to take down our Confederate soldier and this will end racism for us. It's a step just to say, look, we see you and we see that there are a lot of things that are wrong in the world, and some of it has to do with racism. And for people of color in this country, across the board, things are not equitable. But again, as Danny said, when we quit being silent about it, that's when we can all make a difference. White people and black people and all Americans make a difference. But I see where you're coming from, but I don't see it as an extortion. And I think that's kind of maybe what you were, you know, do we have a protest to do other things is that your concern?
I don't know, ask Danny. I mean, I don't know why they're continuing to protest. I mean, the point has been made.
Uh-huh.
You know how many times the point has been made, Dr. Young?
Right, and nothing's changed.
You know how many times we've been right here?
Well, I know
riots and protests, it's cyclical.
I know it.
It's gotta stop at some, it's gotta stop sometime. Every 15 years, we can't have the same thing.
Right.
If
It's
you
the right to
continue
peacefully
protest,
assemble in the
Danny,
Constitution.
You're gonna be putting people in safe harm. Safety's harm.
Well,
That's what the mayor just said. He's concerned about the safety. And I'm concerned, I'm not here in Murray particularly. I'm not that worried about
I would hope that protesters in Murray would learn how to talk to the chief, talk to the mayor, say, hey, we want to have a protest. Because there's nothing wrong with that. The only one that got out of whack was the one that the mayor mentioned the other day. And that could have gone real bad. That one wasn't all that bad until those 2 agitators from outside sprayed the pepper and waved the guns. That was just young people voicing what they felt was right. And it would have went off smoothly, although we didn't understand from being out of town and them saying that we didn't take it serious enough, didn't kind of like it, but that would have been off just right. I was at that one. Nothing was done out of place except that those guys sprayed the pepper spray and waved their guns. That could have turned terribly wrong, real wrong, real fast.
Yes, sir.
So protest is good. I mean, that's kind of how we are built.
The motion has been made, the question and second. The question been called for. It's been a healthy discussion. Everyone respects everyone else's opinion. And I appreciate everyone's contribution. And I'm going to ask if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. I will appoint a committee, but I do want to think about it a little bit and make sure it's a diverse committee that represents a cross-section of the council, and I will notify you. Thank you. Next item is to approve the surplus property list that is listed on your agenda. I'll take a moment to look at those. You might be interested in buying one of them. A couple of them would look good in your yard.
They come with a tank of gas.
I don't know, probably hold quite a bit, don't they?
Mr. Mayor, I designate, that we designate this as surplus property for sale.
We have a motion and a second to approve the list of surplus property for sale. Any discussion on that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. It is declared surplus. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2020-1795. This is the second reading. The clerk will please read that ordinance.
Ordinance number 2020-1795, second reading. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-1776. An ordinance which adopted the 2019-2020 City of Murray, Kentucky annual budget by restating certain revenues and expenditures for the City of Murray operations budget.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna have a roll call vote before we do that, okay?
I have a question for clarity.
On the amendment or the budget?
That's what I'm not sure of. It's the 2020-1975. Is that approving the budget for
This
the
is
next-
amending this current year's budget
Okay,
with the different,
okay, so
things.
number 7 is the actual budget that will be.
the next
voted
one
on.
will be next year's
Okay.
budget.
Thank you.
I believe that's the one you wanted to speak on.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Boland?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry? Yes. Ms. Elder?
Yes.
Mr. Hudspeth?
Yes.
Mr. McChristian?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Rouse? Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Dr. Streeter?
Yes.
Dr. Young?
Yes.
And the motion passes. The next item is the second reading of ordinance 2020-1796. Now, this was recommended by the Finance Committee. We had your first reading. You haven't had a lot of chance to discuss it as a group because we haven't been as a group. I'm going to give you that opportunity in a moment. If there are any amendments to be made, we'll make the amendments, then we'll vote on the amendments, and then we'll vote on the budget. Fair enough? Madam Clerk, would you read this?
Ordinance number 2020-1796, second reading. An ordinance adopting the City of Murray annual budget for the period of July 1, 2020 through January 2021 for the general fund, cemetery fund, alcohol beverage control, municipal aid tax fund, 911 fund, court award fund, local government economic assistance fund, Murray natural gas system, Murray water and sewer system, Murray stormwater system, sanitation, transfer station, and central garage division, by estimating revenues and appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
Okay, I would like to have the discussion first, just in case there are some amendments. I have one that I'm going to share with you in just a moment, but Ms. Cherry, you wanted to address?
Yes, sir. I would like to take this moment to preface my vote on the proposed city budget with a few facts. And if I may, I would like for my remarks to be a matter of record. I have spoken with the chair of the Playhouse in the Park Board of Directors, and this is what I've learned. Playhouse in the Park requires 400 volunteers, including actors. Playhouse includes 60-plus children in their Penguins Project, which is a national project that promotes growth and skills for young children who are challenged. Playhouse promotes over 100 teenagers and elementary school children in their education programs. Playhouse also has a preschool program for children with disabilities. Playhouse promotes a summer camp for around 125 children each year. Playhouse offers workshops for adults. Playhouse promotes senior citizens through the Old Duffers and Powder Puffers Readers Theater. Playhouse ticket sales average around 6,000 in number each year. Playhouse took a 30-year loan last year to purchase a building to be used for props and costume storage. Playhouse impacts approximately 6,700 people on average each year, and we have budgeted to give them 6,000 local tax dollars. The other one I spoke with was the Watch Center. I've spoken with the director there, and she wants me to let you know that they are changing lives. They have 60 participants who can earn up to $1,300 each month before payroll tax is taken from their checks. The director requested that the city exempt their participants from the payroll tax and was denied exemption under the former mayor. That being said, their program impacts around 100 parents of these 60-plus students. With the relocation of Briggs and Stratton, participants who were assembling sponge on throttle shaft lost their work contracts, and so they are now earning less. They now work from 7:30 to 3:30 each weekday through their contract with Pella. They're also learning self-help skills and social skills, which will aid them in transitioning into the job community to become more self-sufficient and productive as young adults. We give them 1,000 tax dollars. I spoke with the Main Street Youth Director on South 4th Street. They serve over 100 unduplicated students each Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after school. School buses from Murray Middle School, Murray High School, and Callaway deliver them to the facility on those days. Besides tutoring and helping with homework, Main Street Youth also provides after-school snack for each child, as well as supervision of the students and positive role models. Some of the families also benefit from donations of food being sent home to them. Main Street Youth has already funded their education building and saved thousands of dollars by finishing much of the work themselves when they get to that stage. Another goal is to raise funds to pay part-time employees to work on Thursday and Friday, so students can attend that program every day and not be home alone without supervision. Currently, the director, his wife, and cousin volunteer 100% of their time, and we give them 5,000 local tax dollars. Each of these people that I've spoken with have told me that they do appreciate what the city gives them. However, they say that they could provide more services and would greatly appreciate the council considering adjusting their allocations when planning the next year's budget, as their costs to operate also rise each year. And that being said, I asked this question last year. Why is there such a great disparity between the agencies that we make allocations to, from $1,000 to the Watch program, to a separate entity which has been given 25,000 local tax dollars every year for 20 years? No one answered my question when I asked the council, how did we arrive at that figure of $25,000 to give to Murray Main Street? No one knew why we have been giving them $25,000 each and every year. So my question now is, if we don't know why we give 25,000 local tax dollars to Murray Main Street, then why are we giving it to them? And then my last question is this being a responsible stewardship of our citizens' local tax dollars? This is just to consider when we have our budget planning going forward for the next year. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Kim, we asked these agencies to submit a request to you. Have you heard from most of those agencies?
Yes, we have heard from everybody except for transit. And I believe that's the only one. And airport.
And did those agencies that sent you report and a request additional funds?
Deedline has requested an increase to 6,500.
Deedline,
Yes,
is that the only one that asked for extra fund?
yes.
Okay.
Can I
Yes, sir.
comment on that? I sit on that Playhouse board. Yeah, certainly, we would like more funding, but we have never once come and asked for more funding, because we go out and we do ask our people to contribute. Even when we decided to go out and take the loan out for the building, we formulated a plan, of which came together very quickly, and we formulated a plan to raise money, and that's how we did it, and that's how we're going to continue to do it. So the $6,000 we get is very much appreciative, and we would never come to you and ask for any more money. As far as Main Street goes, for $25,000, we're getting a heck of a deal, to be honest with you. Because nobody, if we decide we're going to cancel Main Street, there is nobody sitting in this right here or outside that is going to go out and do the things that are done at that facility. Nobody. There won't be a farmer's market, because you don't want to spend, I don't know, how long is a farmer's market? 3 months? Nobody's going to want to spend a Saturday a month up there and all day from 4 or 5 in the morning till 4 or 5 at night to handle the farmer's market. You cannot get somebody to do that for $25,000. They're going to ask for more than that. So what we've been giving them is a bargain compared to what they're really, really worth. And that farmer's market is worth it more than anything. Movies what they had last year, movies on the square, that brought hundreds of people to the square. So you're not going to get that amount of money. You're not going to get that amount of work out of $25,000. Somebody's going to ask for more than that.
Thank you. I'm allowing these comments tonight because you didn't have an opportunity as a group to share your thoughts at the Finance Committee meeting, and I'm giving you that opportunity. And so if you have something, some particular thing that you think the budget should be amended, you make a motion to amend it, and we'll vote on it.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am?
what I was referring to was when we make our budget out for the next year, not what
Okay.
we're voting on
Okay.
tonight.
Well, I'm gonna do something I don't generally do. I'm gonna request that you look at an amendment to this budget. And what I'm going to request, let me just tell you a little bit about the budget, first of all. The budget is a $50 million budget. $18 million in the general fund, $32 million in the utility fund. The budget includes several large items, such as money for numerous stormwater and water line repairs, which we have said, or at least I said, and you didn't disagree, that we need to start getting our infrastructure in shape. It's got $2.5 million for electrical upgrades at the water treatment plant to make sure that we keep our water flowing. It has $200,000 of general fund money for streets and sidewalks, plus another $300,000, I believe it is, for out of the municipal aid fund. So there's $500,000 in there for that. There's money in there, a new agreement for school resource officers at each of the Murray Independent Schools. And there's money in there to pay off one of our loans, $520,000. We paid one off last year. This will be a second one that we're paying off, trying to get the amount of money owed, so where if some future council has a project they want to address, then it won't just continue to add to the debt. There's $500,000 in here to put with the $500,000 grant for the fire station, okay? But the amendment I'm going to make is this, a request that you consider, and that is this. There's a 2% salary increase in this budget across the board for all our employees. And I'm going to request that you add an extra percent to the Murray Police Department. And I'm going to request that based on two things. One, they've done a wonderful job, as you all mentioned, in the way they've handled these situations, and I'm afraid there might be others, and they're going to be in harm's way. And secondly, I'll make that suggestion because we've learned recently that we are going to be eligible to receive some funds for the policemen's salaries during this COVID attack. And so I'm asking you to consider using some of those funds that will come our way and give an extra 1% raise to our police department. If there's any of you who agree with that, you can make a motion. All I'm asking you to do is to consider that as an appreciation to the job that they do. We appreciate the job everybody does, and we get a 2% raise. But I'm asking to consider another 1%.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I didn't make a motion now.
Didn't
I
make a
don't think I
motion
could
yet.
make a motion,
What,
but I
what's
made a
ball-
recommendation,
Okay, what's a ballpark figure that'll cost us? I'm all for it.
$30,000.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Mr. Streeter made the motion.
I'll second.
Second. Motion made and second on an amendment of adding a 1% salary increase for our police, okay? Any discussion? If you disagree, you don't hurt my feeling.
I think it's well deserved. I wish we could do more.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to approve this amendment, Mr. Warren? Okay, on the amendment? Okay. Y'all excuse me, this roll call thing throws me off every now and then. We'll have a roll call vote on the amendment. This is not on the budget, okay? This is on the amendment. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bell? Yes. Mr. Baldwin? Yes. Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Ms. Elder?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. McChristian? Yes. Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Rouse?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Dr. Streeter?
Yes.
Dr. Young?
And the amendment passes. We will now entertain a motion to vote on the budget. FY '21 budget. Have a motion? Second. And a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, we're going to have a roll call vote.
Good catch.
Mr. Baldwin? Yes. Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Ms. Elder?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. McChristian? Yes. Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Rouse? Yes. Ms. Seaver?
Yes.
Dr. Streeter?
Yes.
Dr. Young?
And the budget is passed. I'll now entertain a motion to go upstairs into executive session to
Second.
pursuant to KRS 61A10 1C, the purpose of discussing pending litigation on behalf of the city of Murray.
I'll make that motion to what you just said.
And a second.
Motion made and second to go into executive session. I would remind everyone that there will be no action taken after we return, but those who are watching remotely, you're welcome to wait till we get back. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll recess and go upstairs.
Second.
Motion made, second, to adjourn the meeting, all in favor, we'll have a roll call, no.
Because Warren wasn't sitting next to you, remind me.